Look around.
I hit my car.
Huh? Yeah, you'd like to see that.
I wouldn't like to see that at all. It needs a lot of paperwork for me.
Stay back.
What are you doing? Get off me. Hey, I can. Hey, this is assault. Move. I'm on a side. What is this? I'm on a sidewalk.
Okay, so forget the smears by that editor who, frankly, I've never heard of. Put aside the smears, she actually did say that it looked bloody awful.
Why should others go to jail when you're the biggest carbon consumer I know?
There's 8,500 customers here, and you won't give them an answer.
The only thing I have to say to the government about why I publish it is because it's my bloody right to do so.
Yesterday, I showed you videotape of our colleague, David Menzies, being beat up by Justin Trudeau's personal bodyguards. It was completely unjustified and completely unprovoked. David was standing on a public sidewalk, clearly identified as a journalist. He had his microphone out with the little mic flash that said Rebel News on it. He was accompanied by Lincoln Jay, a young journalist who had a video camera. This was all completely normal. And in fact, David was chatting with the police in a cordial enough way. He had been waiting for about an hour for Trudeau to show up. So everyone knew exactly who he was and what he was doing. He didn't suddenly arrive or anything. Here, I won't show you the whole interaction, but just to recap.
The Justin Trudeau Liberals, ma'am, they're telling Canadians not to get together for Christmas Day, right? It's too dangerous with the new variant. And yet here they are packing in, like you said, 30 to 50 people. Is it one law for thee and one law for me?
I have no comment on that. I don't even know.
Excuse me, ma'am. When's Prime Minister Trudeau showing up?
I'm not sure.
Why is he always late?
I'm not sure.
No?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, sir, where's Prime Minister Trudeau tonight? Why is he always late? Merry Christmas! Hey, how you doing there? Hey, how are you? Roll now? Okay, that must be that.
Get out of the road.
Huh?
Come on.
Look around.
I hit my car.
Huh? Yeah, you'd like to see that.
I wouldn't like to see that at all. It needs a lot of paperwork for me.
Stay back.
What are you doing? Get off me. Hey, I can. Hey, this is assault. Move. I'm on a side. What is this? I'm on a sidewalk. I am on a side. What is this? You cannot touch me. Not rushing over. Hey. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? Let go of me. What is this? You can't. Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Am I under arrest? Because otherwise you have no right. Get out of my side, man. Huh?
I'm in
Huh? Get off of me!
Guys, relax!
Completely unprovoked, shocking, brutal, absolutely surreal, but too real, wasn't it? So I showed you that, yesterday, and I showed you how this was preceded by 5 years of Justin Trudeau and his staff demonizing Rebel News, saying that we were less than we are, saying we aren't real journalists, banning us from public places, and even treating us as less than citizens. When a federal court ordered Trudeau to allow us into the leaders' debates, twice now, he defied the spirit of that order and simply said we weren't journalists, no matter what the court said, and so he refused to even talk to us. He'll talk to Vladimir Putin. He'll talk to China's dictator Xi Jinping. He'll talk to Omar Khadr, but he will not talk to us.
Chance de répondre à ma question en tant que Premier ministre, ou allez-vous encore diaboliser mon média?
J'ai partagé ma perspective sur ton organisation hier soir. J'ai plus rien à dire.
Ça demande bien qui vous êtes. Merci.
So I showed you all that, and I told you what we're going to do about it. What would you do if you were mugged like that? We are going to sue those 3 Trudeau bodyguards. We're going to sue the RCMP that pays them and directs them. We're going to sue the Attorney General. In other words, we're going to sue the most powerful people in the country. The Attorney General, also called the Justice Minister, he runs the largest law firm in the country, also called the Justice Department. So we're literally going against Goliath here. David is the plaintiff. He's suing for $50,000. So obviously, this isn't about the money. It's about having a judge tell these bullies that what they're doing is unacceptable. It's illegal. It's morally wrong. It's un-Canadian. I expect the lawsuit to cost us at least $75,000. I do it because I love David and because my own self-respect. If David is cut, I feel it too, because he was there for me and for Rebel News. And really that means he was there for our viewers. He was there for you. That's why he was cut. So we rolled out the video and we had a petition and we had the lawsuit that we filed yesterday. We showed it. We showed you this all last night and the video was shocking. And thousands of people around the world were shocked by it. Political commentators around the world, even Australia, the United Kingdom, America, were stunned by what they saw, from Ann Coulter, Fox News' Tammy Bruce, to Breitbart.com, to the UK's Lawrence Fox. About 1 million people have seen the video in different versions on our different platforms. But here at home in Canada, crickets. Almost total silence, not total. Conrad Black called it a shameful event. Laurie Goldstein of the Sun chain was upset by it too, as was Joe Warmington. Our friends at True North, including Sue-Ann Levy and Cosmin Georgia. But that's just about it. The only member of Parliament who took a stand was John Williamson, a former journalist himself, who wrote this strong statement on Twitter. He said, "This is totally unacceptable, whether you like Rebel News or loathe Ezra Levant's news outlet. Reporter David Menzies is not a threat. As a former communications director to Prime Minister Stephen Harper, I am shocked by what I watched. These RCMP officers must be held accountable. This cannot stand." I appreciate that. Out of 119 Conservative MPs, that was about it. That's all I saw. Tell me if I missed something. Leslyn Lewis clicked like on John's tweet. I guess that's better than nothing. I'm pretty sure that's it. No comment from any other politician that I saw. Certainly not from any of the other parties. Now, I'm not looking for validation. I know the difference between right and wrong. I'm not even looking for help. We'll help ourselves, and our viewers will help us crowdfund the lawsuit. I don't need a politician to do anything for me or for David, actually. But I do need them to do something to let the world know that this is unacceptable and un-Canadian, to let the country know, to let the RCMP know that this is not normal to happen to anyone. I don't care about a politician coming to my aid or David's aid. Will no one say that this was unacceptable? Is it because they hate Rebel News so much or hate David Menzies so much? I don't think David is particularly hateable. I don't think Rebel News is either, by the way. But even if that's the case, don't you think you ought to speak out against police violence against anyone, let alone against journalists? I mean, is that actually okay what you saw? Is that the message of the stony silence here? I tagged the Canadian Association of Journalists, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, Canadian Journalists for Free Expression, PEN Canada, Amnesty International Canada, All the so-called civil liberties groups, not a peep. All of them stood up for Omar Khadr, the terrorist murderer. None of them stood up for David Menzies, conservative journalist. What does that mean? Oh well, why should we be special? No civil liberties group has lifted a finger for anyone in the past 2 years. But I must show you these. I said that in my show yesterday, I predicted that most journalists would remain silent and that some would even blame the victim. I knew I was right about the first part, but I really didn't think the second part was that likely. I mean, come on, look at this video. It's pretty bloody clear cut. Who would blame David Menzies for this? How could you even blame him? Look with your eyes. Okay, well, look at this. David Akin, Global News big shot, former colleague of mine and David Menzies at Sun News. He asked, curious, what was the question David risked life and limb to ask? So your David Akin, so your former colleague just got beat up. And you don't say, whoa, are you okay? Or, whoa, this is wrong. Or even, this looks wrong. You say, what was the question he was going to ask? What? How's that relevant?
What shampoo do you use? What a disappointing answer this is going to be. Whatever happens to be hanging around at the time.
And you say he was risking life and limb mockingly. Now, I don't think David was risking his life, although you never know. I think he got a kind of concussion, actually, and I know he was bleeding. But this is the reaction of a journalist, let alone a friend. Who would say that? Well, what were you going to ask? As if you were blaming a rape victim because she wore a too short skirt. David Akin isn't quite the journalist he thinks he is. If he actually watched the videos that we published 2 videos last night and a third today, you can see the question David Menzies would have asked, because he actually asked it later. Why is Trudeau going to a Christmas party when he's telling Canadians not to? Okay, it's a fair question. If you have a better question, go ahead and ask it. But the question is irrelevant to why he was beat up, that he was beat up, and by David Akin asking, well, what question were you going to ask? That implies there's a right or a wrong answer to that something turns on the answer to that, as in perhaps David's question, which he hadn't had the chance to ask yet, perhaps that was the reason that David Menzies was pummeled. But David Akin was just getting warmed up last night. And he's talking to Stacey Newman here, who says, I've seen Rebel News in action. It's ugly. They provoke. They are neither credible nor ethical. Having said that, we should be shown what precipitated the manhandling of this reporter to assure ourselves that we do, in fact, have a free press in Canada. So that's some senior editor somewhere. And she has about 50 words of smearing us before acknowledging, yikes, that David actually was manhandled, and it does, in fact, suggest we don't have a free press. So she's worried. She hates us, but she's worried. There was no provoke, or unethical conduct. In fact, the only unethical conduct here is people smearing David without even bothering to watch. But take a look.
Roll now? Okay, that must be that.
Get out of the road.
Huh?
Come on.
Look, road.
I hit my car.
Huh? Yeah, you'd like to see that.
I wouldn't like to see that at all. It needs a lot of paperwork for me.
Stay back. What are you doing? Get off me. Hey, I can. Hey, this is assault. Move. I'm on a side. What is this? I'm on a sidewalk.
Okay, so forget the smears by that editor who, frankly, I've never heard of. Put aside the smears, she actually did say that it looked bloody awful. but not David Akin. He was trying to turn her around on this. He said, Google David Menzies and arrest. This is how he pays his bills. What? So David Akin is saying that David Menzies wanted this for profit? That this is what David Menzies does for money? That David Menzies expected this, wanted this, planned this, provoked this? And by the way, David Akin is still suggesting that David Menzies was arrested. Menzies was not arrested. He was mugged by the police, not arrested by them, not charged by them. I'll show you another tweet here. Another journalist, Alan Fryer, chimed in and said to David Akin, shouldn't matter, David. This should not happen in Canada. So Alan Fryer is saying it doesn't matter what David Menzies was going to ask. But Akin doubles down. He says, like I said, I'm curious. The only journalist, in scare quotes, I've seen treated this way in 20 years of covering political leaders as Menzies. It's his shtick. Fundraising theater. He gets arrested all the time. Well, I say again that he wasn't arrested last night, and a better journalist would have known that than David Akin. Because David Menzies was doing nothing wrong. He was standing on a sidewalk. But it's a lie. David Menzies is paid his salary. His salary is fixed. It doesn't depend on crowdfunding campaigns or how police treat him if he's arrested or not. David Menzies does not even know, none of our journalists know how our crowdfunding campaigns go financially, or if there's even enough money to come in to cover any legal fees, as it's not the province of our reporters. But look at David Akin's proof. He said, David is attacked again and again, so obviously that's proof that he's wrong. I mean, people wouldn't be attacking him if he wasn't wrong. Obviously, it's proof that David Menzies is wrong, not that the police are brutal or Trudeau is brutal. And again, he says, you think? And then there's a little smiley face. As I've been saying, Google David Menzies and arrest. This is his business model. You wicked defamer, David Akin. He's laughing, smiley face, at David Menzies for being beat up. That this is his business model, being beat up. How did David profit from this? As if he went there to be attacked, as if anyone would have or could have expected such violence. Look again. Look again. Why would David Akin say those things? Why is he looking at a clear video of a man being mugged, unprovoked? And why is he laughing at him and mocking him and claiming he's doing it for profit? I just don't even understand that profit part. Is David getting paid for having been beaten up? What on earth is it? What's going on? I think it's because David Akin's worldview is that the Trudeau Liberals are fine, everything is fine, the way the government treats the media is fine, and such a shocking, inconvenient fact as this mugging of David Menzies, if David Akin looks at it on its own terms and accepts that it's real, then David Akin's world comes tumbling down. And David Akin's belief system that Justin Trudeau is a gentle, noble, woke leader, these two things cannot be reconciled. So David Akin has chosen to throw out the inconvenient fact and to disbelieve his lying eyes about what happened, because the alternative is too terrifying to think that Justin Trudeau is in fact a bit of a thug and his entourage of bodyguards actually did beat the living daylights out of a 59-year-old journalist with two artificial hips. It's just too much for David Akin to process, so he throws out the fact that would damage his theory. And his obsession with David making money off it. I signed David's paycheck. And I can assure you that David's paycheck is a salary that is consistent whether he's attacked or not. I should give him some sort of danger pay, I suppose. But what a wicked lie that David Menzies schemed this, schemed being attacked on purpose. David Akin's obsession with money, which is so strange, is, I think, a little bit Freudian. Because here at Rebel News, we don't take a dime from Justin Trudeau. You know that. We're one of the handful of companies in Canada that runs a news organization without taking money from Trudeau. David Akin was a journalist. It goes from news outlet to news outlet. All of them are on the take in one way or the other from Trudeau's media bailouts, media funds of this sort and that sort. It's obviously subconscious in David Akin's own mind that he can never be a true journalist if he's taking money from Trudeau. That's got to weigh on his mind. The fact that he is paid by Trudeau and he covers Trudeau and he doesn't disclose that essential conflict of interest. So he projects his own subconscious conflict onto David Menzies, as if David Menzies is out there trying to please or appease some master. The beauty of running Rebel News when we're crowdfunded by thousands of individuals, average size of a gift $50, is that there's no boss, there's no sacred cow, there's no someone you're not allowed to take on. And if you doubt me, look at how we take on conservatives. From Aaron O'Toole to my old friend Jason Kenney. There's no sacred cows when you work at Rebel News. But David Akin has to be careful he doesn't offend his ultimate paymaster, Justin Trudeau. And so he's projecting his obsession with selling out onto David Menzies. And he's thinking, well, the only way this makes sense is as a stunt, that David Menzies somehow planned to be mugged by these cops. What a disgrace. It wasn't just David Akin. Terry Glavin, a self-declared human rights journalist. Seriously, that's his whole shtick. That's his whole thing. He tweeted this. He said, in response to Larry Solomon saying this is unacceptable, he said, except you have to sit through a fundraising ad for Levant's show before the evidence, in scare quotes, is shown. And it consists of video appearing to show cops being perhaps unnecessarily and maybe unintentionally rough with a guy. Really. So perhaps unnecessary, or maybe it was necessary. Maybe it had to be necessary. Perhaps it was unintentional. Perhaps it was just a mistake. Perhaps they kept beating him by mistake. By mistake. And it's just, and the evidence of your eyes, like David Akin, Terry Glavin, who's just got the perfect perch in society. He gets to tell you how noble and righteous he is. His specialty is talking about human rights in other countries, in Hong Kong or in Tibet or in the Uyghur part of China or in Kurdistan. Terry Glavin is excellent when talking about human rights in other countries, and he writes for media in Canada that are Trudeau bailouts. Same thing there. He can't bring himself to look at police brutality against journalists in his own country because he's on the payroll of Justin Trudeau through the media bailouts, and because it would just, he can't survive he can't survive without his belief system that Trudeau is noble and everything's fine. I think there's one more layer about Terry Glavin, who writes all these very earnest columns about civil liberties and human rights in foreign lands from his den, whereas we are sending our reporters to these places. We sent twice reporters to Hong Kong to cover the uprising there. Twice we sent reporters to Iraq, to Kurdistan, the things that Terry Glavin likes to talk about. We're actually doing it. Those are a couple of examples I want to bring to your attention. Other than the few journalists I named, the vast majority of journalists in Canada were silent. And Terry Glavin and the wicked David Akin thought they would accuse David Menzies of constructing this, I don't know, of being in some sort of trick with Trudeau's bodyguards to get beaten up. You know what that's called? That's called a conspiracy theory. David Akin sees Justin Trudeau's bodyguards beat up David Menzies. And instead of looking at those facts, he cooks up a bizarre conspiracy theory that David Menzies planned it, profited from it, and he fudges other facts, like saying he was, quote, arrested. He was not arrested, David Akin, and that's why this was so gross. We will defend David Menzies. We will raise money from our viewers because we don't take it from Justin Trudeau. They're not just disgraces as journalists, David Akin and Terry Glavin. I think they're disgraces as people. That's an excerpt from my daily show, The Ezra Levant Show. Every day I do a monologue on the news of the day, then I interview an interesting guest, and then I read my hate mail. You gotta subscribe. Go to rebelnews.com.